Hi everyone, my name is Rafael Taiar, and I'll be presenting today about my proposal for the Parc de la Barceloneta, as you can see on the screen already. But before we can talk about the proposal itself and the building, I think it's fair to talk about the context and what brought me to this final design, if I can call it final. Before even touching the site, it was immediate that one of the biggest issues was this connection between uh, the Ciutadella and the beach and having the Ronda Litoral blocking the passage of people. So um, after carefully examining what was available, I thought that this couple of parks you see on the top left and right could be important starts for a bridge that would bring people to the park and to the beach. These points are also very important because they are served by a lot of public transport, and you can just see the sheer amount of opportunities for people to be uh, using this park and getting to the beach. Oops, I jumped a slide or skipped a slide. Here. Just emphasizing again the flow of people, both from the north of Barcelona and the south, and the physical barrier that the Ronda Litoral and the train tracks impose. So moving on, you'll see that I have a couple of buildings proposed here, and although they are very large, or at least they look very large, you may be surprised to see that they touch the ground on only 4.5% of the total area of the park. And that was very deliberate because I wanted to leave the ground free for water to permeate, and especially because of storms, and just to refresh the water table below the site. And this lifting off the ground will also give me more opportunities that I'll show in a little bit. But it still has a lot of space. It has over 3,000 square meters of covered space. So moving on to the first building, or maybe the second building that you see coming from the Ciutadella, which is my school proposal. It's based on this squared module of 6 meters by 6 meters, so 20 feet by 20 feet. And the idea between this module was to keep things fast, simple, and adaptable. I wanted the construction to be fast and cheap. I wanted people to be able to change their environment. And I didn't want to impose a space on people. I wanted to give the opportunity for people to make the most out of the space they have. So you'll see that on the these lighter squares here are my interior spaces, and what's shaded in a little bit darker is covered, but not necessarily interior. And what's perhaps most notable about this is that I have these louvers here that are carefully placed near the interior spaces because they are operable. So you can see that on the right here, sometimes you can flip these louvers vertically and they shut completely. And you can extend your interior space by 2 meters while still keeping this privacy. Or you can extend this interior space and leave the shutters open, as you can see on the render above, to extend the room, but still keeping some level of privacy. Or as you can see on the bottom left here, you can completely open them and extend the interior indefinitely into the park. Moving on to the second level, you'll see a similar condition with the clusters or these modules. And you'll see that there's very little interior space. And that's because most of this exterior space is shaded, and the interior spaces are near the hospital, and this shaded outdoors is near the park. So it sets the stage for people to look over into the park. And not only that, but there's a green perimeter around my building, or this second floor, which gives people privacy as well as connection with nature because they are above ground, but they can still feel um, in they can still feel a connection with the park. Also on this or above this, there's a lot of space for solar panels to produce their energy for the school. And all of these green roofs and the green perimeter allows me to harvest water and use for irrigation or just restrooms and sinks, stuff like that. Moving on to the sections, you can see how this green perimeter shields people and can give an interesting experience depending on what is planted there. So you can have scented plants such as lavender or other plants. I'm not a botanist, but I can imagine the possibilities of having this connection with nature so close. There's also steps that allow people to go up and have a better view of the site and also the beach. This green roof collects water that is stored below ground, and below the elevated platforms that you can see here, you can see a couple of stormwater management swales that allow for the building to be used continuously without any interference with weather. You also see a difference in texture between what's near the building on the ground and what's below that. That is a layer of gravel, and the reason for that is so that when people, because this building is so open and permeable, it's important for people to feel safe there. So by having gravel, people can have the auditory perception of someone approaching, and they can feel safer, which is especially important in a school because you want people to feel safe there so that they keep coming back to school. You don't want people not going to school for something that your building is lacking. Right. So moving on to the second building I had, which is, I'm calling it just a pavilion, and it serves the soccer field that exists today, but it's not limited to that. So it acts as part of the soccer field because it has two restrooms and two dressing rooms, and it has bleachers facing the soccer field. But these bleachers are also, they are operable, and I'll show you in the next page to give, yeah, so I'll show you on the next page. So above that, you see the green perimeter again. And behind this, so to the right of the render, you can see the soccer field with goal. And behind this building to the left, you'll see the bridge that hugs this building and goes to the Citadel. So here's what I mean when I talk about the bleachers being operable and giving an opportunity for people to sit and watch the game or whatever is happening on the field. And also just pulling back and giving space as a pavilion for a farmer's market or any activity that may not be related to watching the field. Again, with the green perimeter and the water catchment on the roof. Here's how this building is composed. It's all of dry construction. So I can imagine starting with just the simple columns, and you can see just how little it touches the ground. Those 4.5% as I mentioned before. So timber columns with glue lamp beams, with cross beams, and the slabs hovering above the ground just slightly, and partitions made of hempcrete on the outside and cork on the inside, and with the louvers and the additional planters on the roof to collect water and provide shade. So with all that, you have a dry construction that is fast, simple enough, and also carbon negative because it's composed of materials that take out carbon from the atmosphere as they grow, such as wood, hemp, or cork. And that concludes. So thank you for listening, and let me know if you want to see something else or if you want any clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafael.
I will stop sharing just because I want to switch screens so I look at you while I talk, but just give me a second.
So while Rafael is switching screens, I'll say hello to Claire Robinson, that is here, and also to Dan Hoffman, that is ready to switch with Antonio when his batteries end. So thank you everybody for being here. I also see Alexander Provine and Nicholas Witt and Kay and Luis Daya. So also thank you everybody for being here. Okay.
I am recharging the batteries already.
Go ahead. You're gonna be exposed soon, so go ahead. We have now 15 minutes for discussion.
Everyone seems to have muted. I thought Antonio was going to say something. I think it's a lovely project. I appreciate how subtle the opening detail was of like stepping on the gravel and hearing yourself walk into the site. And I think that there's something so lovely about how your plan really just frames the edge of the kind of the field in increasingly kind of minimal ways. So where it is, most thick or robust here, and then the kind of thinness of the ramp that comes up. And it, in some ways, this comment is maybe frustrating, but I think that your project suggests a range of scales, and I would love to know like what you imagine on the other side of the field. Like what's the way that you kind of frame the edge as we might encounter this left side of the proposal? Because I think that there's this interesting procession that you've set up where I walk towards the site and I hear something, and it's that moment where I'm able to either step on the field, like right here, or wherever you want to send us is okay. But I think it's such a thoughtful proposal. I love how you've kind of integrated the city into, or kind of inflected the city into the site. And I guess one of the reasons I bring it up is that my experience in the park, what's the name of the park again? The Ciutadella?
This is the Barceloneta park. The Ciutadella is the one just above.
The one like up, yeah.
The one I'm,
yeah. Ciutadella is the one that has the zoo and all that, and the
yeah,
all these things.
And so that park is so wonderful because it's like many layers of rooms, and sometimes it's like you're between two trees, and sometimes you walk on the gravel, and sometimes the grass is elevated like 2 or 3 feet on a little berm. And so I see actually a lot of the same types of very subtle space making moves in the project. And I think that the edge of the project, that moment where it kind of meets the city, right along here, could just be a wonderful place to take your strategy and think about what is it in its most minimal expression, and how do you kind of meet the conceptual setup of walking across the gravel. And maybe these kinds of comments would end up having you like over design everything, and to say that every piece has to be somehow precious. But I'd love to see what would your project look like if it was reduced only to 1 bay long, but maybe extended along in a certain way, or invited people to both be kind of in the city on the left side, and then in the building or on the field on the right side. And so I think that in many ways it's such a subtle and complex proposal. Like the sections I think are really quite suggestive. And the ways that they frame views at the interior, I think, is also quite nice. So I appreciate that you don't have a purely symmetrical plan, but yeah, these 2 sections I think are like, it shows the range of spatial types that you have, and that dealing with the ground isn't a kind of it's not like a coarse thing, or it's not a like a brute force thing, but it's actually quite a subtle layering of steps and platforms and terraces, and sometimes I touch the ground and sometimes I'm above. And I think that is just a very thoughtful proposal.
Thank you. Yeah, just going back on your comment of what happens on the opposite side of that pavilion, I thought about what could happen there and how I could maybe differentiate between the park and the street. And my initial thought was to add some of these louvers that I have there, because they can be they can open and close. But I just gave up on that idea because I thought they would enclose the space too much, and it would start to feel that the soccer field is that space for few and not for everyone.
Yeah, it might just be as simple as like a 6-inch curb of stone or something that is maybe even the width of just the beam, the glulam or something like that.
Right. Yeah, maybe I could add this green perimeter with a railing. So on the outside of the, so right here, I could add just that 2-meter bay or planter.
Right, Rafael, I mean, what Jonathan is someone that is telling you what he's telling, but bear in mind he was able to make a map of the taste of all materials in an architecture. The taste, not the texture, the taste.
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see the process behind how did you get to the taste.
No, but I think I mean, the description, the drawings you're showing are fantastic. No, yesterday I think it was we were having a discussion on a studio that had left unplugged or as not to work on sections and plans, just for the sake of other issues. No? So we were trying to make to discuss whether that made sense or did not make sense. And when I see the drawings that you're showing, I maybe I'm too old or I don't know what, but I think the drawings, the way you draw them, are the best 3D expression of what your architecture is, although it's a flat drawing. So I think this is fantastic because they carry codes information in such a way which is sophisticated. It doesn't. They don't leave aside, issues that have to do how you build them. Not totally described, but it's okay. So it's a fantastic. It's a fantastic document. I'm actually reading these days the History of Images by David Hockney and Martin Gayford. Maybe it's a book familiar to some of you. Maybe Jonathan, Elena, and Dan know it. And I mean, they're two fantastic. One is a person writing about art, and the other one is an artist. And they say, "Hey guys, you know what? The world. The only thing that you don't find in the world is a flat surface. There is not such a thing as the 2D in the world." And it so happens that we architects are fully involved, and painters too, in the 2D version of the world. And I think the way they explain it is fantastic. I never thought of it that way. I was like saying, look, this is what thinking means. This is what proposing means, because it's not in the world. We made it up. The 2D description of the world is something we made up. And so this is fantastic. So I have to see that the drawing is able to explain so many things. I love it. But maybe Rafael, maybe your project also allows you to show not only the final result of it, but how do you walk up the slope from zero to where the project is. And do you see what I'm saying? You're frozen in your image. No.
Yeah.
So
no, go ahead.
It's just maybe it's a curiosity, but it's in part of the condition we reach, sharing the steps we made to get there. It's just a question.
You can access the building anywhere. Oh, go ahead.
No. I'm saying what is the other part of your process that is not shown in what you showed us? So we, for instance, understand the difference between the unquestionable way of joining two ways of crossing over the Ronda de Litoral towards the Ciudadela, and then making something that makes a lot of sense, which is an addition to the soccer field. But then your building shakes in the sense that it can be a little bit more off, a little bit more on. It doesn't seem to have the codes so that they show us that it is finally placed as it is.
Right, I see what you're saying. It is placed as it is because it derives from the block orientation of the Barceloneta neighborhoods. So if I go back, maybe you see better. Yeah, so these blocks align or are parallel with the buildings. And I do imagine this modular system being able to grow anywhere. So you can, this building is able to change over time, grow or shrink.
But isn't that, no, I saw that, but isn't that a little bit strange for the building?
Also,
the location of the school, Rafael, seems a bit off of the concept that you're working with on your site plan. I mean, I agree with all the what's been said and celebrate along with everyone else the qualities of the drawing and the sensibility of the project, which is touching the earth lightly. But as much as you're touching the earth lightly, you're connecting strongly to other things, such as going back to the station and to the subway. Those are very strong connections, right? Even though they're curved and whatnot. And I think that part of the strength of the scheme is actually tying that knot between those two things. Everybody implies them, but you're actually doing it. And it's in a way, it's the most fantastic or fantastical aspect of your scheme. But it makes it even more strange that you just take your school and locate it somewhere else off that line. As much as all the effort you go to connect it, that the school is unconnected in a way. It's odd. I mean, I think, so another thing that's wonderful about the connections is they're all above grade, right? So you're floating above a very hard part of the city, which is desirable. It removes, if there's ever an argument for a second level pedestrian connection, here it is, right? And what's beautiful about your project is you take that notion of being above grade and you show us all the different ways when you can be above grade, by 6 inches, by a meter, by 5 meters, you know? And it's so strange that somehow or other that's not taken into the consideration. So for example, what if the school was entirely 4 meters, 5 meters above grade? You know, it connected to your strings, you know?
mm-hmm.
I find it, you never explain why the school where it is, where it is, what the relationship of the immediate surroundings are to the school. You didn't offer that. You went right to the soccer field, which is beautifully done and beautifully contextualized and beautifully connected to everything else you're doing, whereas the school is sort of off. So I don't know. I'd ask you to maybe think again about where the school might be relative to the connections you've already worked so hard to establish. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, but I think it begs a question.
Do you mind going to the first slide with the real view?
But I mean, of course, I think Dan has explained it much better than I have the same issue, no? So it's perfecto. But probably no. Maybe the site plan. No, maybe it's not only a question of, you know, a variable that you take, you know, just because it's parallel, that's fine. Well, it may not be fine. No? Just you can say that this is what exactly provoked it, but is it doing something else apart from performing the application of a data? This is always what happens to all of us. No? You can build an algorithm, but that is it making something else than the pure, you know, the pure ratio that you are applying to it. But if you look at the site plan, a possible solution is not a solution. why don't you say augment, increase, make the beach go, be the ground where so then the whole thing then, so maybe it's a question of how do you prepare the conditions for the building to be there, and then you'll probably be much easily placed in whatever other way. You see what I'm saying? So it's not a question. Sometimes you find it on the conditions, no, more than on the parameters that make a decision. No?
I can only add,
can I say one last thing? Rafael, the school reminds me of the Scuola del Mar, the original one, which was on Piloti over the beach. And I almost would like to take your project and put it by the boardwalk over the beach.
Right.
It has that spirit, or somewhere else connected to your strings.
I only wanted to comment on the first slide with the perspective in the image of Barcelona, just because I mean, this is also Barcelona, and Kim Rosell this afternoon or this morning, I don't remember, talked about how urbanists in Barcelona talk very much about north and south, relationship between the mountain and the sea, but this is a more contemporary vision. And I always try to find this image with such a good resolution, and I had a hard time. That's why I'm impressed. Where did you get that? But also because it's really communicating very well the growth of the city towards the north, and all the things that we haven't looked at. But I think it's a very impressive understanding how it grew. A while ago, they were talking about the solar canopy. Is this thing here? But the fact that you're showing the hills. That is the mountains across those hills really feel very present in a clean day in the north of Barcelona, and they mean many things. They mean also the microclimate of Barcelona is constructed by those hills around Barcelona that they protect from the north. So I think it's a very we can see here Jean Nouvel's cucumber and many other things. So I think this is how the city has grown, and this is the place also where the city has made more mistakes lately. So lately, meaning between the 2000s now, the fast growth of the city towards the north it's been too fast in many moments, economical moments, and there are some buildings there, one after the other, that they don't make a city as the city used to be made in Barcelona. So I think you're pointing to a direction that we haven't talked enough and is very important.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that that what I'm showing is provoking further thoughts. I'm also glad to hear that Ben that this project reminded him of the original Escola del Mar. It was one of the inspirations for the entire semester for all of us.
Thank you, Rafael. Thank you all. We go to the next.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.